Hello, beautiful people. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you what I read in November. I will be letting you know what I think you should read and what's worth picking up, and then also what you might want to skip. Hopefully, some of the better books that I've read might end up on your reading list and might be your next 5-star read. If you are new to my channel, hi, I'm April. You can think of me as your bookish fairy godmother. On this channel, my goal is to hook you up with your next 5-star read. And these are just a few of the 5-star reads that live rent-free in my head. If you like what you see, I hope you'll subscribe, hit the bell, and stay a while. So I am going to share what I read in November with you, from least likely to recommend to you to most likely to recommend with you. And we are starting with a nonfiction book called Modern Friendship. This book is written by a journalist named Anna Goldfarb, and she speaks in this book about modern friendship and how it can be rather difficult in this day and age to create long-lasting friendships. She talks about the pain of friendship breakups and speaks to her own experience. And she also speaks to what she believes is kind of the recipe for creating long-lasting friendships, which is about finding wholehearted friendship. I felt like this book was a little long for what it needed to be, but I did gather some really good tips in here around friendship. I think I would consider myself a good friend. I hope I would consider myself a good friend. I hope my friends think I am, but I do really care about my friends and I want to be the best kind of friend that I can be, which is why I read this book. There are things in here that I had never thought of before that were so good. She speaks to how, in romantic relationships, there is usually a sense of where things are going and why things have ended. Usually in a breakup, you don't get a carry issue with a post-it note leaving. There's usually a reason, a conversation about why this relationship isn't working. Similarly, if things are working really well, there's often a marriage. There's nothing of the sort in friendship. We don't have any of these things, these markers that let us know how our friendship is doing. It's so interesting. And I'd never thought about it before that way at all. And she speaks to the idea of, some friends are here for a season, but they might dip back into your lives again. There's this ebb and flow that can happen and what you should look for in a friendship. So I did find it a little bit long, but I did really enjoy it. And I definitely got some good content out of this. And I've implemented some of the stuff in my own life. I've even created a little section on my Notion with all of the people in my life. And I was able to kind of go okay, how close are these friends, and really look at my friends and then start writing down bits and bobs about them that might help me later on. Just little things what's their favorite drink at Starbucks, and just have data on that kind of thing. Is it weird to collect data about your friends? I hope not. Next is The Reader. This is a book that happens, it's set post World War II, and we follow 15-year-old Michael when he meets a woman twice his age and has an affair with her. Essentially, she is sexually abusing a child. That's what that is. He doesn't view it that way at that time. And so we follow him then, and then she has disappeared from his life. We follow him 20 years later or something like that, where he is a lawyer, and he is in a courtroom, and that's the next time he sees her. And she is a defendant of a horrible, horrible crime that she will not try to really maintain her innocence. She believes she's holding a worse crime, if you will, that she doesn't want that to get out. Really fascinating book, really disturbing and kind of gross, because you are so much of the book reading from the perspective of a 15-year-old Michael when he's in this horrible relationship, which you can't really call a relationship, but he deems it as such. And yeah, really devastating read. Very, very well written. Short, tiny little read. You can get through this so quickly. I would recommend it. Next, I read a kind of cozy mystery book called How to Solve Your Own Murder. We go backwards and forwards in time. We meet a young girl, 1965. Her name is Frances Adams. She's at a country fair with her two best friends. She goes to a fortune teller that day, and the fortune teller tells her that she will be murdered one day. And for the rest of her life, she is trying to solve her own murder. We flash forwards to present day, and we meet Annie Adams, who has been asked by her great aunt Frances to come to her like lavish estate. And by the time that she gets there, her aunt is dead. Was she murdered? What happened? And he starts going through Frances's diaries and learns about her great aunt that she really didn't know well at all, and is trying to find out what happened to Frances. I thought this was delightful. Definitely a cozy read. Like, not, I think if you're like new to mysteries or something, this is a great way to get into it. And it's also a kind of easy, light read for those of us who like the dark things in life for this time of year. And I needed that in November with the election results. I was just kind of feeling like, and I needed something a little more positive, even though there's a murder in the title. Then I read Brooklyn and I read Long Island. So Brooklyn is the first in the series. This is about a young woman who lives in Ireland. And because there is truly not enough work to go around, her family thinks it's a good idea if she moves to America. And so she does. She moves to Brooklyn and she meets a man there. They fall in love. And it's about her story of being pulled in two directions. Her home, and then her home away from home, and her heart is being pulled in both directions. It is such a beautiful story. Then I read Long Island, and I was kind of mad because there are characters from Brooklyn that you really kind of fall in love with, and you're kind of mad at them. And you, again, are following her being pulled in two directions. She has built a life in Long Island surrounding one man. And she discovers something one day. A random man comes to her door and says, this has to stop. My wife has been impregnated by your husband. And I will not be keeping the baby. When the baby is born, I will be bringing the baby to your doorstep, and you're going to take care of him or her. And he walks away, and she is left with the shambles of that news. And again, she is pulled in two different directions. To stay in Brooklyn or Long Island, or to go back to Ireland. I loved both of these books. I kind of hope there are more, because with both of the books, I will say, you feel like you're leading to like a crisis, but there's never, it's very realistic because there's never really a blow up in crisis. There's, you are like led to the edge, but it just kind of is left there. There's not a lot of, it's not wrapped up in a nice little bow in either book. I will say that I was listening to this on audio, Long Island, and I was like kind of screaming at whatever device I was using to listen to it because I was so frustrated. And I was also so worried. There are people in that book that I care about, and I was worried about them. I will say, won't make you feel very great about men. After the election results, I, like a lot of people, went down a rabbit hole, still down that rabbit hole, but I went down a rabbit hole of trying to understand. And I read a book called Democracy Awakening, Notes on the State of America by Heather Cox Richardson. She is a historian, an American historian, and this book is her latest and is so recent. Like, she didn't know the results of the election when she wrote this book, but she knew there was going to be an election. So it is so recent and so fascinating. This book speaks to the American dream and how Americans have been spoken to by their government, by even like the Hollywood movies and that kind of thing, and how they have crafted this image of America, and how politicians repeatedly seem to tell the public that they're going to go back to this idyllic time that never really existed, but this idyllic time in American history. And she speaks to the reluctance to speak to the true history of America that we are seeing over and over again in the news and in politics, and speaks to the true history of America. I really, really liked this book. I so highly recommend it, especially to all of my American watchers, viewers out there, watchers. Yeah, I really recommend it. I really, really liked it. My favorite book is a book that made me cry so much. It's called When We Were Young and Brave by Hazel Gaynor. This is a World War II historical fiction book. We are following young girls in China in December of 1941. They have all left England to go and stay at a boarding school, I should say, in China. And they're all like also part of the Girl Guides. That's like the basis of this story. It's rooted in Girl Guides. And we follow not only one of the students going to this school, but we also follow one of the teachers at the school. You will fall in love with both of them. And while they are there, Japan declares war on America. Pearl Harbor happens. And the Japanese come into their school and say, you are now under arrest. We are watching you, essentially, and we're going to hold you here at this school and you can't leave. And these guards kind of reign over their lives. Some of them are nicer than others, and you follow them here at the school, and then when they are told to leave to go to an internment camp, it is such an interesting story. I really like it when World War II books are not only set in like the typical places that you kind of see over and over again in these books. I really, really appreciated seeing it kind of from a different perspective. I will say, even though this is the book I most highly recommend to you out of everything that I read, the characters are a little bit flat, and the Japanese and Chinese characters in here are not main characters, and also are even more flat. So major warning there. I should let you know. And maybe the reason for that is because it's written by a white woman, and she didn't feel like she could write about these other characters, but it bothered me while I was reading it. That said, cried my eyes out so much that I had to kind of go backwards a little bit to read the end a little bit more because I felt like I was missing things. Anyway, highly recommend. Those are all of the books that I read in November. Let me know in the comments below, what did you read in November? What was the best book that you read in November that you would recommend to everyone? Did you read a 5-star read? I hope so. And I will chat with you very soon. Bye.